Okay, here we go with another map for that almost reached the TeamLiquid Map Contest 9th finalist. This map is Yopico by ZigguratOfUr, and yes, can be seen, it is kind of a similar, it is rare to see two maps that basically have the same concept, but they do it in different ways on the same TeamLiquid Map Contest. We have a finalist called Neo Violet Square, which is this one, that uses basically the same content, the same idea that Yopico uses, but there is some difference in not only the execution, that you, for example, can see that RQM map, which is this one, it is more like cleanly executed that Ziggurat's map. But at the same time, there are differences in the way that they use the little checkerboard pathfinding blocker system. Like Yopico uses it in a way more in your face. This is a tactical way of using the small holes compared to an strategical view of using them in the case of Neo Violet Square. As you can see, they are only on certain areas of the map, especially in the center, in the pathway, in the rush alongside the main base to main base pathway attack, and in some other very specific places. Meanwhile, in Yopico, they are basically strong along the areas where fights are more likely to occur. And because of this, you end up having basically the slight difference, which is on a map it is more strategical, meanwhile in the other it is more tactical. It is something that you will face around like every single battle in Yopico. Meanwhile that on Neon Violet Square, you will only see them if both players like choose to get into that area, and that gives basically the choices to the players where to fight on with another stick to the map itself. In the case of, for example, Yopico itself, you have them in right at the top of the ramp leading to the natural. This is an area where the defender player always will want to defend, like basically at any cost. Because, for example, in any matchup, it is not an area that you can lose and try to still claw your way back into the game, especially if it's kind of in the mid game, especially, and in the late game, if you lose this area, you have basically already lost the battle and lost the game. In this case, for example, the way the holes are placed around will heavily reduce the DPS density of the defender player army, reducing his ability to defend his own ramp. And even when that is I can see like the idea behind it, I personally don't think that will work, especially as you need to think that the maps that reach ladder will be used for a long time comparatively. Like if we had a system in the ladder where we had the maps swapped every 3 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, then Yopico might like see some play, because I see it kind of a gimmick, but at the same time it's part of the strategical and tactical side of the map. It is a strange thing, but I don't see it that this map will produce, and not that it will produce bad games, but that over time it will be frustrating for the player base, because the dots, for example in Yopico, it is not especially clear in what areas can, for example, siege tank pass or which ones don't, and that is something that it is not something that I will recommend map makers to play around. I would prefer it that every single thing was like very clearly defined, especially because otherwise it can lead to like some incredible exasperation, for example for things like rally points and such. In the case of Neon Violet Square, those is more like clearly defined. For example, once you play a single game on Violet Square as Terran, you will see that your tanks can only pass through this bigger decal with some texture painted on, and they won't be able to cross this. Same in this area. Meanwhile, that in Yopico, it'll always be kind of a guessing game. Can a siege tank pass through here or over here? And because it is not as clearly defined like it was in the previous map, it can lead to some frustration, and you need to basically learn the entire map over time instead of having it like very clearly defined. Other very important thing, as you can see here, for example, me trying to test out like which areas can be passable or with siege tanks, marines, doors, and such. Other important thing that I'm not sure if it's clearly shown in this screenshot, it is the incredible small size of the main bases. Because of the holes, you end up having a very small size. You can see the ramp up there. You end up having like a very small size main base, or at least an unusable space. And also because it is set up in such a way, the holes are like placed right there in the place where Terran or Protoss is most likely to drop, it can lead to some very important abuse. Like it is those holes were specifically placed there in order to create this kind of abuse. But over time, players will always get better at the map and will learn to abuse things better and better into such a way that I don't think that this is like per se good unquote design, because it is way too risky over time. It can lead very easily to the entire map having problems in the long term, especially like over 6 months of constant gameplay. The spacing of the map overall, the layout itself is rather simple without the holes and such, and I consider that as a bonus, more or less. Even when it's kind of without the holes, it is just a blank slate with a unpassable center. But itself, the layout without the unquote gimmick of the holes, it is a well executed layout. Like the distance more or less are fine, the distance between the third and the nut, the distance between the natural and the optional third base or fourth base could be maybe improved because it might be a little bit too long. This entire area might also as well be slightly too oversized for the usability of it, because of it is, you could have done something slightly more interesting with the amount of space that you are using in this area. The way that you divide the map, it is also like very clear, at least for the players. It is just the 4 bases, and the bases and the wings can be. It is up to the player, whatever, like which side of the map they want to expand on, and that I see as a very clear like win for the entire design of Yopico. Overall, the map, I don't know. I don't see it like as a great map, but also it is not a bad map per se. The way that, for example, the Selnagas are laid out in order to allow for the blue player in this case to expand more to the north, and the red player to expand more to the south, it is kind of, you can still expand to the other way if you want, especially, for example, for a Terran that might want to take down the rock, place a planetary fortress here, and attack more in a straight line towards the enemy's third fourth base, because it will also have the advantage of the high ground with the stronger tanks and all. Overall, the map, it is not bad. It suffers from some execution issues. I think the aesthetics could have been improved, but that in my mind is like a secondary thing. The wings itself, like this area around the very top and at the very bottom, could have been improved because of the amount of space it is using. It probably won't get used as much. So you could have tucked away the base a little bit more and do something more interesting with the space in another area. That is like pretty much it. I think that in order to sum it up, clarity for the small holes, I consider that to be very important. You can still achieve the attack. I think that you can still achieve the using the holes as a tactical way more than a strategical way, like for example neon violet square, and make it work still, but maybe not so much as in your face, like for example in the forward side of the natural base on the main base and such. It will have to, I'm not sure how you will have to plan it, but you will need to make it an even more integral part of the map than it is already hidden Yopico or than in Neo Violet Square. It will have to be like something new, something that we haven't seen yet, at least. But overall, some of the judges like really like the map because it has like a different air to it than in Neon Violet Square. But it just fell to the wayside because the concept itself, it is not as well executed than the strategical side as it was in RQM's map. But at the same time, I don't consider it to be like absolutely horrible. I think that for example, if you can get some players to play on it, I very much would like to have the replays for that in order to study it. I think that the holes in the main base will probably need to be removed like 100%. Probably the holes in the natural ramp maybe will have to also be addressed, but other than that, it is a tricky subject because it is kind of not something that we see every day, and even then, Yopico takes it another step forward than RQM's map. So yeah, overall it's like a very interesting map. I play around a lot on this one. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it, guys. See you in the next one.